Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we're going to be reviewing David Lean's Brief Encounter. But before that, we're going to talk about HBO Max releasing the Snyder Cut, Solar Opposites, and Kingdom on Netflix.
The Snyder Cut is the documentary about D. Snyder of Twisted Sister finally cutting his hair, isn't it?
That's it.
His infamous haircut that he had,
Yeah,
probably.
Sign up to HBO Max so you can see that.
I'd watch it.
Join us.
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is a man who, if we did our job right, will never know what the subject of last week's episode was. Mike, how you doing today?
Pretty good. If I hadn't read the title, you might be on there. No, I'm just kidding. I listened to the episode and it was lovely, although incredibly boring. Subject matter wise.
That's what we strive for.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were going for. Also with us is a man who's wondering if it's still 2020. Justin, how are you doing? How are you holding up through the 2020 year?
It's good. I saw a thing or something online that said, like, someone says something, so it was like, job interviewer, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the response was August. And that kind of feels like 2020 to me. So
yeah. That's
Are
felt
you
like every
married
year
yet?
for a while for me.
Am I married yet? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
I mean, I feel like that should have happened a while ago, right?
It was supposed to happen almost a month ago. I'm supposed to be a month into this marriage thing, but we had to move it. So fingers crossed it'll still happen in mid-July-ish.
So you're making it through the pandemic, though?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
I'm an introvert, man. This like, there's a lot of bad things about it, but like sitting at home and watching movies and TV and reading books and like stuff is, I can handle that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
no, I'm thriving right now.
Right.
If this is your first time listening to the show, you have wandered into a Casually Criterion episode, which is a Criterion Collection focused episode that we like to do usually every other week or during a pandemic more frequently than every other week. Anyway, this is where we review a Criterion film that is voted on by the listeners. Now, before we get into our main review, we'll be doing our usual News on the March section where we talk about recent news and things we've been watching. So if you haven't seen Brief Encounter, you can continue to listen. Everything will be timestamped, and then we'll mark very clearly when we move into our Casually Criterion review for Brief Encounter, spine number 76.
That's right. And if you want to vote in our polls to help pick our next Criterion film, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. The poll will be on our Twitter account, but we will post about it on Facebook and possibly Instagram if we're feeling like it. Usually we don't. So stick to Twitter maybe. But you can also send us your questions about the movies we're discussing each week. If you want us to answer a question about a film, whatever, send it to any of those social media accounts or to casualcinemedia at gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review. It'll help other people find the show and let them know that they should be listening to us.
Please and thank you. Okay, guys, I think we got a lot on the plate for tonight. So what do you say we get into News on the March?
I'm ready.
March on.
All right.
News on the march!
Okay, so guys, I guess by the time everyone's listening to this, HBO Max will have launched. I believe that's happening sometime, like as we record this,
Tomorrow.
in the next few hours.
Yeah.
And so HBO Max needs content. And so I'm sure anyone who's been on the internet for the past 2 years has seen something, a hashtag called Release the Snyder Cut. Are you guys familiar with this hashtag?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So in case anyone's for some reason not familiar with it, this is basically so Zack Snyder got fired from Justice League, right? He was supposed to do a 2-part movie of Justice League.
Real quick, he didn't get fired. Like, his daughter committed suicide. He had to...
Right. That's the answer that everyone knows is the PR answer, but everyone really knows he got fired. But anyways, basically what happened is he was going to make this 2-part thing, and then everyone hated Batman versus Superman, right? So in the middle of shooting Justice League, Zack Snyder was removed from the project, regardless of the real reason. But anyways, so it was never finished, right? And then Joss Whedon stepped in to shoot. Reports vary anywhere between 20% of the movie to 75% of the movie. No one really knows. But everyone, what we do know is that the Justice League we got in theaters is a complete pile of garbage. Have you guys seen the official Justice League movie?
I have not.
You've never seen it? Really?
Not the Justice League movie. I watched Batman versus Superman, and I drew a line there.
That's
Really?
so weird because I remember that like it came out when we were first starting the podcast. This was, before Mike was on it even. And I remember having like a specific, in what was our news on the March section at the time, conversation about Justice League and how you were going to go see it. And I was like, no, that Batman versus Superman movie was not good. So, and Man of Steel wasn't good in my opinion. So I'm out,
Yeah.
And I've seen it and you haven't. This is so wild.
That's crazy. How did that happen?
Well, okay, so Justin, you've seen it. So the report has it that they're not going to shoot any more footage for the movie, but HBO Max is going to contribute anywhere between $20 to $30 million for Zack Snyder to complete his version of the movie, or as much as he can, based on not using any more new footage of the actors, right? So he's going to get CGI budget and score and whatnot. But my question is this, right? This, to me, this move only can lead to one possible outcome, right? Which is that he was planning a 2-part Justice League that ended on a cliffhanger. So at the very least, the best we can hope for is that he manages to finish his version of Justice League Part 1. Why would they do this unless they were trying to save their franchise and potentially make a Justice League Part 2?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I know they've had the Robert Pattinson rumors of like him being cast as Batman for something sort of thing going on, but I think they want to, do the Marvel thing and have these big movies where they bring all the heroes together instead of just Batman movies. Like, it almost seems like that's not good enough anymore to have like a just such and such character. We got to have the movie where they all come together and build to this big event and try to get hype. So like, yeah, I think you're right. I can't think of any other reason to really do this.
Yeah, especially for $20 to $30 million. I know you need content for HBO Max, but man, it's such a weird thing to do because, I mean, if he manages to film this, they still have Part 2 completely not even close to filmed, right? So they would have to either, if they wanted to bring Robert Pattinson's, which by the way, I don't think that's a rumor. I think they've officially already started filming the movie.
Yeah.
They've actually had to interrupt the filming of that movie because of the pandemic going on, but they're going to resume it sometime soon. And it's actually being directed by Matt Reeves, who did the last two, the most recent Planet of the Apes movies, and the Let Me In version of the American version of Let the Right One In.
Oh yeah, Robert Pattinson should shave his mustache off if he has one as Batman, although he probably doesn't, and just walk in, shave his head, and walk in and be like, "Huh?
Well,
now you got to CGI my hair."
Well, I wonder what's going to happen. Are they just going to try to squeeze Robert Pattinson into the Batman role in Part 2 if they end up doing a Justice League Part 2? That'd be weird.
I would be surprised if, Batman. The new Batman connects it all with the Snyderverse stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd be real surprised if we get a Justice League Part 2. I really don't think that we're going to get that. I think there's enough outcry from people on the internet and enough bullying and stuff like that went on. And actually, there's some good. I mean, people were donating to suicide awareness and stuff like that in honor of stuff like that. So there are good people, but the majority, I think, were bullies on the internet.
Right. But, yeah. That's whenever, I can't remember what it was, but some Star Wars trolls were being really, really toxic a couple years back. So then someone dedicated to some kind of charity for the actors or something like that to let them know that hey, no, we're not mad at you. We just hate the people that create the content that we like.
Do you think that they actually think that they could save face by releasing this? The theory behind the Snyder cut is that Zack Snyder's cut would have been good or better than what we got, right?
Well, it can't be worse than the Justice League we got. Say what you will about Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, but they were a higher quality film than what Justice League ended up being.
Yeah, I agree.
I really think that this is just about putting this on HBO Max and getting getting subscribers, and also being able to hopefully, calm down a certain part of the fandom.
You're setting a precedent instead.
Yeah, there's that possibility. So, is it Justice League Part 2, release the Justice League Part 2 cut? So we'll see how that works out. But
I mean, I'm not unsympathetic to the people who wanted a unified vision, right? Because I'm not super into the Justice League movies, obviously, or like the DC Universe movies. But at the same time, whatever they did to Justice League was just like, it killed any momentum that franchise had, in my opinion, right? Like, they could have recovered after Batman versus Superman. Like, I didn't like that movie a whole lot, but I didn't hate it. I'd rather watch Batman versus Superman than like Thor 2. But at the same time, it's like I'm kind of like with Chris there. It's like, I don't see them making a sequel to it. But best case scenario, we get a mostly completed Zack Snyder version that ends on a cliffhanger. So I don't know. It just seems like a really weird thing. And we're like in Weirdsville right now with this. And but my main concern is just like the precedent that it will set. Now like every online petition is going to be even more vigorous, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they feel like they might be able to change people's minds.
Yeah. It feels like rewarding bad behavior.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel great to me.
Yeah.
If you cry loud enough and whine hard enough, they will give in eventually, which is...
Yeah. I do think, so like in opposition to kind of like, I don't really care about the Zack Snyder cut, of Justice League. I'm not super excited about that. What I will say is I did enjoy the Watchmen extended cut more than I enjoyed the original Watchmen.
Have you seen the Batman versus Superman extended cut?
No, and
it's better.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear that is better as well.
It makes sense in places that the theatrical version legitimately does not make sense.
So it is possible that it is a better movie. I can't see it being,
It can't be worse.
Yeah, well, that's true. Even though I haven't seen it.
Oh, man, you should see it.
Well,
Justice League as it exists now by Joss Whedon.
You should. The other thing, too, is in a world where production hasn't been happening for a while, we may hit a lull down the road where things... aren't coming out, or we don't have a lot of content to release. I mean, even though I guess would have come out in theaters now is being delayed, but like, this is something that in theory could be done remotely, and they could get this out right now while filming can't happen. So it is also, maybe it was just happens to be good timing. I don't think it comes across that way, because I do think it comes across as giving in to people who are whining.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second. So yes, we know that the release the Snyder Cut hashtag is pretty annoying, and that a lot of those people can be pretty toxic. Although some of them do good things, like charities to suicide prevention and etc. So it's a two-way street. I don't want to paint a broad brush here and say that everyone who wants a Snyder Cut is a toxic fanboy or something.
Right.
Like, for example, I mean, like, here's where I will say is, if this had been a movie that was released by a director who had a finished product and the people didn't like it and they demanded something different, like with like video game wise, like the Mass Effect trilogy ending, that was the case, right? Like, people just didn't simply like the way that the creators chose to finish the story. I don't agree with those kinds of petitions. That said, Justice League is more like, to me, the finished product seemed more like corporate meddling than anything. Yeah. And there have been reports, like Chris said, that Zack Snyder retired from the movie off his daughter's suicide, which would be completely justified, right? But I've heard more rumors since then that was all just kind of PR, and really Warner Brothers was panicking because they haven't had a very good last 5 or 6 years.
Could be both.
Yeah, it could be both. We'll never really know. But what I'm basically saying is that if this had been Zack Snyder's completed movie and they didn't like it, that's one thing. But the Justice League we got was just sort of like a corporate blah. So I don't necessarily have any problem with fans, in theory, on principle, demanding the original artistic vision be completed and get this corporate meddling out of there. like, you know, for example, like Rise of Skywalker got hurt by the release date, right? They had the December release date locked in, and they were working towards that release date, even though the Kathleen Kennedy apparently told J.J. Abrams, this is according to the editor, that this movie needed more time in the editing room. But they just didn't simply have time. They had to ship the movie off so they could get score and, you know, special effects done. So, like, there are certain things that, like, come in for just, like, corporate mentality. It's not artistic reasons. It's corporate meddling, right? Like, you need a release date hit so, you know, the thing can't get completed in time. Or, you know, we're panicking because the internet seems to have soured on our golden boy, Zack Snyder. These things seem more like, yeah, I don't mind fans stepping up and demanding different or alternate cuts of the movies if no one's getting hurt and there's no bullying taking place.
I mean, it's certainly a thing. Like if Martin Scorsese had a cut of a film that he liked more, his original cut, but the studio was like, no, we're going to release this cut, I would certainly want to see the Martin Scorsese cut.
Or not even that, not even like a disagreement on like what should be in the movie. But like it seems like with the two examples I used, it seems like it was stuff outside of even the creator's like preferred version. It was like fear of backlash and we have to have a big $1 billion movie at the end of the quarter.
That's true, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these seem like very much driven by like panicking financial reasons rather than any kind of like attempt to make something good. So like the way I see it is like if you release it in theaters, you hit your release date, you got the money you needed from theatrical runs for better or worse. If there's a better version of the movie that can be done from the original creator, you know, go for it. I'm a big fan of Blade Runner Final Cut, so I would be a hypocrite to say that you can't go back and make a movie better.
Yeah.
The thing I guess that makes this kind of muddy that is hard for me is that he didn't finish shooting the movie, so even what's there
right
might not even be his vision. So like, is he going to just be working things, you know, from someone else's vision that he's trying to cut and like morph into his own in some way? Like, I mean, it's interesting for sure.
From my understanding, there's a lot of Zack Snyder's stuff that was left on the floor. Like a lot of his stuff got left out of the movie completely. Like they're talking about doing like a 4-hour cut, you know, like, or maybe like 4 or 5 episodes. They're also talking about just doing 30-minute episodes as well on HBO Max, which would be also interesting and just completely different. But so there is a lot of footage that was unused in the theatrical release. That being said, I don't know like how you fill in the gaps, you know, like of stuff that he's just going to have to use voice acting, you know, like he's going to bring the original actors back in to do like dialogue and stuff like that.
Maybe a lot of like CGI shots with people talking over them.
Yeah, like or over the shoulder when people are talking.
Like Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
Any movie could use a little more Terrence Malickness and be better. That's my line I'll draw.
Let me ask you guys this. Are you guys more interested or angry, or how do you guys feel about this? Are you going to watch it when it comes out, or are you like gonna like boycott it? You know, how does it?
I'll watch it for sure. I am curious. They have my attention. Just for the sheer what we've been talking about so far, right? Like it's an incomplete product. So like at the best case scenario, he could polish an incomplete product of an incomplete saga. Like an incomplete first installment of an ultimately will be incomplete series. So
yeah,
it feels like a lot of money wasted for no reason. But that's what I'm saying is like, this is unprecedented. So like they could genuinely like spawn a sequel out of this if it goes well. Like, yeah, it's unprecedented. So I just thought it was interesting. I want to talk about it.
How about you, Justin?
I'll watch it. I don't know that I would say that I care or that I'm super interested in it, just because I don't think I've really liked any of the like modern DC movies, at least like within this Justice League universe.
Yeah, for the record,
starting with Man of Steel, I was like, okay, I didn't like that. Batman versus Superman, okay, I didn't like that. And Justice League, all right, didn't like that, but exceptionally so on this one. So I don't know, you know, it's not like Zack Snyder's been hitting home runs for me. I'll watch it because it is what it is. I want to see, I guess, what is going to be so different about it, but it'll be something I watch when I have nothing better to do, I think. So,
does this get you to subscribe to HBO Max? Because that's the real question, right? No. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, phone a friend.
Yeah, I'm already subscribed to HBO through my TV provider, so I'm getting upgraded through HBO Max for no reason. So It is enough for me, I guess, because I'll already have it.
Yeah. Well, all right then.
Yeah, so that's all I really wanted to say about the new Justice League Snyder cut. Just the fact that it exists, and that's interesting. Or will exist soon. All right, so Chris, what have you been watching this week?
One of the things I've been watching the last couple of weeks is the new TV show from Justin Roiland, Solar Opposites. Have you guys heard about this?
I've heard of it, but I have not seen it yet.
Yeah.
I've been watching Rick and Morty, though.
Yeah, I love Rick and Morty. So that is what kind of boosted me to try this show out. And also, like, there's a couple of recommendations. I like it. It's really good. It's very similar to Rick and Morty in a lot of ways. And maybe that's just because some of the voice cast is the same. You know, like Justin Roiland is doing the voice, so it sounds very similar. A lot of the jokes seem similar. It doesn't have the darkness that Rick and Morty tends to have sometimes. You know, like that really dark place that Rick and Morty will go to. It's a really fun show, but there's the thing I liked about it the most is there's like a C plot that starts like in episode 1 or 2, and then it just slowly works its way up and gets bigger and bigger, and then like by episode 7 it gets its whole episode, and you're just like completely surprised by it, and it's really pretty great. I really enjoyed this show. It's worth watching. It's like only 8 episodes. It's been renewed for a second season already on Hulu. So at 8 episodes, you don't really have much to lose, and it's really worth watching. Especially if you like Rick and Morty.
Sweet, I like Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it looked pretty similar in vibe and in tone, but it's good you have like a little bit of difference in there, that it's not quite so dark, because Rick and Morty it's a show that like I really enjoy because it's brilliant. But also, it's a lot sometimes. So, like, I don't necessarily enjoy binging it.
Yeah. It's kind of like BoJack Horseman, but darker.
A little more, what's the word? I'm like, doesn't care about anything. Like, nihilistic, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Cool. So, Solar Opposites, the whole season is on Hulu right now?
Correct. And, yeah, it's very much worth watching.
Cool. Well, I probably will check it out because I could use a new short show to watch.
Yeah, I'm getting close to finishing up some shows I'm watching, so I'll need some new ones. So Solar Opposites is on the list.
Yeah. I've got another show that you might consider, Justin, that I've been watching and just recently finished, like I believe last week. And that is a South Korean show on Netflix called Kingdom, which is a zombie show, but actually like pretty good. Not like some other zombie shows that are really popular and have been going on for way too long. But this is based on a comic series called Kingdom of the Gods. And I'll just give you like a kind of a short summary. The king has died recently, and they hire a healer from out in the country to come and do a special procedure on the king that has dire consequences for the realm, I guess. But this show there's 2 seasons on Netflix right now. And they're each, I believe, 8 episodes. Or 6 episodes each. So there's like only like 12 episodes total of this whole show for 2 seasons, which means that each episode is higher quality than your average zombie show. It doesn't bring a whole lot new to the table as far as like zombie mechanics, you know? But I will say that they handle the rules of zombies a little differently here. So it's not like boring zombies that are like Walking Dead type zombies. They're a little bit more like the 28 Days Later type zombie. They're like really fast and aggressive, you know? Mm-hmm. But the show has its own rules, and they kind of unveil those rules of like this outbreak in like throughout the episodes. So like it feels like the story just keeps unfolding. But really, I'm just going to say that it's good. It's a short, breezy little thriller show with kind of like this like palace intrigue mixed with zombie action and survival stuff. So if you're looking for a short, easy show to binge and you don't mind subtitles, check out Kingdom.
Sweet. I was interested in zombie shows. I like zombie movies and stuff, and I was interested when Walking Dead came out, but I checked out pretty early on that show because I didn't find it that good. So
yeah, me too.
Another zombie show that's like a potentially good zombie show, I'm in.
Yeah, which, by the way, it reminds me a lot of, like, have you ever seen the South Korean zombie thriller Train to Busan?
Mm-hmm.
I have not.
I just watched that recently in the last couple of weeks, too. It's really good. It's a lot of fun.
I like it.
It's a lot of fun, actually. So check that out. It's on Amazon Prime, I believe, or Netflix.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about that movie, so it's been on my list forever.
Yeah,
too.
I definitely recommend them, and I'm not. I know I've recommended a lot of zombie stuff lately, and that's just purely coincidental. I assure you, I'm not particularly drawn to zombie things, but here lately, I've just been stumbling across good stuff with zombies.
Yeah, maybe you're a zombie.
Oh man, maybe.
And you're just pushing the zombie agenda on us.
Oh man, maybe
living regular people.
Good thing we don't record in the same room.
Oh, I know.
All right, so that's all I've got. That's Kingdom on Netflix. 2 seasons. Watch it.
Sweet.
Yeah. So with that, gentlemen, are we ready to get into a brief encounter? The brief encounter. Some brief encounters.
Brief encounters of the third kind.
Yep. All right.
I'm a happily married woman. Or rather, I was until a few weeks ago. This is my whole world. And it's enough. Or rather, it was until a few weeks ago.
We're neither of us free to love each other. There's too much in the way. There's still time. If we control ourselves and behave like sensible human beings, there's still time.
I want you to promise me something.
What is it?
Promise me that however unhappy you are, and however much you think things over, that you'll meet me again next Thursday.
Where?
Outside the hospital at 12:30.
All right, I promise.
Okay, so as always with our Criterion films, they are films that have been out for a while, usually at least 5 years, oftentimes many, many decades they've been out. So we will not be doing a spoiler-free section like we normally do on our more modern movie reviews. So we're going to go straight into it with spoilers. So if you have not seen Brief Encounter, pause this podcast, go see it, and then come back and listen to it, unless you just don't care about getting this movie spoiled. In that case, just listen on.
All right, Brief Encounter, Spy Number 76, was directed by David Lean. It stars Celia Johnson, Trevor Howard, and Stanley Holloway. The IMDb synopsis says, meeting a stranger in a railway station, a woman is tempted to cheat on her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that is a very succinct synopsis. I like it.
Yep, brief, if you will.
Yeah. Ooh. All right, so who wants to get us started on their thoughts for David Lean's Brief Encounter?
I nominate you, Mike, because you twice previously had Brief Encounter on a poll and it didn't win. And this time you did not choose Brief Encounter and it won. But I feel like that means you were most anticipating eventually one day watching Brief Encounter.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I had always heard about this movie. I heard that it was like right behind The Third Man is like the best British film of all time kind of like list, you know? So, since most of the David Lean films that I've seen have all been like the 60s widescreen super epics, you know,
Yeah,
I've always kind of wanted to see the early David Lean, the film that I've heard the most about by him that wasn't one of those big roadshow ones. And it didn't disappoint, in my opinion. I feel satisfied. I didn't quite love it. It didn't floor me like Lawrence of Arabia did, or, you know, Bridge on the River Kwai or something. But I enjoyed it more than like Dr. Zhivago. So, you know, not the best Lean film I've seen, but still quite good. And I think Trevor Howard and Celia Johnson are incredibly watchable, and their chemistry is, you know, just electrifying on screen. And I think specifically Celia Johnson carries the movie, and I think her performance and her great voiceover narration, or like narrating her thoughts throughout the movie, is just really, really, really great. So I'll keep it brief there because I'm still kind of unpacking my thoughts on the film. I've been doing a lot of finals this week, so I haven't even had time to really think about this movie after I watched it. So I'm interested to talk about it and kind of see where the conversation goes, but I liked it quite a bit. Chris, what are your thoughts on Brief Encounter?
Yeah, much like you, I did choose it this third time that it's been in our poll, and finally it won. So I was excited about that. Much like you, I've only seen really David Lean's, big widescreen films, and it's very interesting to see this smaller screen film, but I still feel like this movie is somewhat epic in the way it does treat its characters, and also with sound, especially those trains in the train station, and seem bigger and larger than life. One of the things they talked about in the commentary was like how that train at the very beginning of the film is going 100 miles an hour literally through that train station in order to get that shot, to make it feel as like powerful and get your attention at that moment at the very beginning. And I find that fascinating. I do like the way the story is told, like how she's pretending that she's telling her husband everything that's happened, and the way she feels like split between the two men. I found that interesting. Really in here, like the sound design is, I think, what really kind of runs away with the movie. They talk about how the sound design goes from like she's telling the story, and so the sound in the room where she's telling the story leaks into the story that she's telling, and I find all that really interesting. But you're right, the actors are astounding and really good, and yeah, I'm really interested in diving further into it. Justin, what did you think?
Well, like you guys, this is my first time to see this movie. Same as you guys have seen the longer, more epic David Lean movies. Again, like you guys, not disappointed. It's a very good movie. It's, not a movie that I just like flat out love and was floored by and ready to revisit. It's not something that's going to jump to the top of my list of like, if I'm, hanging out with a new friend and we're talking about movies and the great movies, I'm not going to be like, you haven't seen Brief Encounter? What's wrong with you? But it is very good, and it's very entertaining. The lead actress, I think in particular, is incredible. She's got eyes that I could just like watch her look around at things and react to things with her eyes, for an hour and a half, which, there is a lot of talking, but there's a lot of great not talking in this film too. And I think in particular, I was grabbed immediately by the opening scene where we don't really get any dialogue that we hear between our two main characters. We just get the loud, obnoxious, talks a lot woman who comes in, and we don't get everything we need to know in terms of like the details, but we kind of figure out what's going on, and it really draws you in, I think, from the get-go with not having those characters say anything and just dissecting and watching the looks that they exchange, I think is an incredible way to start this movie. And then I think I love the feeling that the movie leaves you with too, as like Chris was talking about, it's this sort of confession in her head that she isn't actually giving to the husband, but it sounds like a confession. And I like that this movie kind of lets us have our cake and eat it too. We get to hear the confession and go through feel like her somewhat like catharsis of a confession, but she didn't actually give it. So in the end of the movie, we know she's still like in that same spot. Right.
Well, and also I think it's important to note that he just thanks her for coming back. He doesn't particularly ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. He kind of absolves her, even though she hasn't told the story. He absolves her of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is kind of unsatisfying in a way, but also I think spells a lot about the relationship and why she might be unhappy to begin with.
Yeah.
So it could go either way, so in that sense, I think it's good,
Yeah, I'm done with my general thoughts. Really, I do love the black and white cinematography of it, like the train station stuff. There's a lot of really good, almost like noirish sort of lighting here and there that I found really interesting, and I can kind of leave my general thoughts there. And I want to hop off and just ask a question on something you just said, Mike. But I think we understand as an audience why she might cheat, but I do appreciate that this movie doesn't really make him a bad guy.
The husband?
You know what I mean? Yeah, the husband.
Yeah.
You could easily pull this movie off and really get us on the lead character's side, on her side, by making him a real terrible person. And there's plenty of movies that do that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the balance that this movie gives us, that he's not great, and you get it, but we're also not.
We don't dislike the man.
We don't dislike him. We can feel bad for him too.
It's interesting because the leads, even though they're the ones falling in love and potentially having the affair, they feel bad about it. Like, they're not proud of themselves for doing it, right? And like, even though they ultimately do it anyway, it makes us more on board and sympathetic to them to see them struggle with it the whole time. Like, struggle with this natural chemistry that they both feel and this infatuation that's both overcoming them, you know? But they're trying really hard to not let it. They ultimately do, but I think that therein lies the good drama, right? And like the acting and like the chemistry from the actors and everything in the dialogue, which is, I think, what makes this movie so well, is that we're watching people do a bad thing, but they don't particularly feel good about it.
Yeah, it's conflicting, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how do you guys feel about like watching this movie? Do you root for them to get together? You know, like you might in a typical like romance movie. Do you have that feeling of like the chemistry sucks you in so much that you want to see them get together, despite that it might not necessarily be right?
I mean, the movie has this kind of sense that it's all temporary. I mean, even the title, right? So I think there's this expectation that whatever happens, it won't last. It's not lasting. So I don't know that I have a want for them to get together so much as like a curiosity to see how it unfolds.
Yeah. Well, we know how it's going to unfold, I guess, because of the way that it opens,
but how
right?
how we got there, you know?
Yeah, we start off,
Which is a cool way to start the movie, I will add. It felt very modern. The idea of seeing the ending and like with no context first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it all of that being told through just the looks between the two.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, when he's walking away from her, the final like hand on the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Just long enough to be intimate, but just short enough to where like not to raise suspicion, you know? I love that. That was really, really good.
Yeah, I liked the reveal at the end. So we get that scene at the beginning, and then we cut over to, you know, the lady that talks too much and does a bunch of stuff, and she runs outside, and we don't see what's happened there until the end of the movie. But then the reveal of it at the end of the movie is really powerful and makes it like, this is what happened. That's the part that satisfies you as we go back to the end of this, or as we get to the end of the story. We get to see her point of view and what happened, as opposed to staying inside that little cafe.
Yeah, and her narration gives like the nice device to like let us know exactly what's going on in her mind, because you know she's been telling us the whole story. So like the idea of flashing back and then leading up to that point is executed really well. And you know, at that ending section when she runs out there and like she starts to hear the train whistle and all that, you know, we start going into like these weird Dutch angles where like we feel like her world is completely shifted and tilted, you know, like she is lost right now and she is vulnerable. And I think even the camera work seemed very modern and holds up by today's standards, because when we start seeing these Dutch angles, all of a sudden it's very, I don't know, striking in my opinion.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Third Man earlier, but those are the kind of things that come to mind when I think of the Third Man, is this like noirish black and white cinematography and Dutch angles.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
I thought about that movie during this end sequence. They reminded me of each other visually.
You know what movie this reminded me of, Justin? And I believe you watched it with me. There's a movie starring Jennifer Jones and I believe Montgomery Clift, a Vittorio De Sica movie called The Indiscretion of an American Wife.
Mm-hmm.
Or
we did watch that.
Terminal Station or something like that. But this movie, that movie, I guess, has a lot of DNA wrapped up in Brief Encounter, like a lot of the imagery and even a lot of the plot line.
From what I remember of the movie, I would agree. It might even take place mostly at a train station.
Yeah, I think that one takes place entirely
correctly.
at a train station.
Yeah. But obviously, I had not seen Brief Encounter when I watched that, that would have been, 9-10 years ago that we watched that one. And that's the one that's on a Criterion release too, as Indiscretion of an American Wife and a Terminal Station. It's like two different cuts of the movie, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia now. And it's under Wikipedia as Terminal Station, but It's the same movie. So I imagine that's probably what it is different cuts. But just skimming it, it only gives one runtime on IMDb. Or not IMDb, Wikipedia, which is 89 minutes. So anyway, this film, I believe, David Lean won at the Cannes Film Festival, like Best Director, I believe. But even though this movie was nominated for Best Director and Best Actress, I believe Best Picture at the Academy Awards, it didn't win anything. I don't know what did win that year. I haven't looked that up, but I just think it's interesting to note that this movie is pretty much considered a classic now. And like a whole lot of movies, it seems like the Academy didn't appreciate it at the time.
So one of the things I looked up on the Criterion, so it does, the Criterion release of The Indiscretion of an American Wife does have The Indiscretion of an American Wife, the Selznick 72-minute cut, and then it also has Terminal Station, an 89-minute version, so it does have two different versions.
Wonder which one I saw.
Probably the Selznick version.
Bummer.
Who knows? Well, we'll pick it for a movie. We can watch both of them and see.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that. You know, I think my favorite part of Brief Encounter, dialogue-wise, is when she's thinking to herself and she says, like, nothing lasts. Not happiness nor sorrow. Not even life really lasts that long. And I think that's quite poignant.
Yeah,
and
did it move you?
It did. It moved me. I think she delivers it well. It's sad. I think Noel Coward's script is really tight and poetic and good and eloquent.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this movie just feels so breezy and short. And it's such a simple movie, but it's filled with such character and nuance and rich dialogue that you understand the love, you understand the chemistry, you understand how these two people could fall in love with each other and how they couldn't resist because they're both just incredibly charming and well-spoken. Like, I really enjoy the scene at the beginning when she actually, you know, the meet cute where she gets something in her eye and he has to remove it. And it's just very simple and harmless and innocent enough. You know, it starts out so innocent.
Is that the brief encounter, or is their whole thing kind of a brief encounter?
I would assume, I hear it as the whole thing being the brief encounter.
Okay. It only lasts about 4 weeks or so, right?
Yeah. And it's like, it's brief encounters, plural, but all of them add up to one large brief encounter, I suppose.
Yeah. So I have two things, I guess, left I want to talk about this. One of them is my favorite thing in the film is the fake movie that they see like the trailer for.
Oh yeah.
And then they end up going to watch, what is it called? Like the Flaming something? Flames of Passion.
Oh yes. Okay.
Is what it's called. But I was watching it and I was like, is this real? Like, surely this isn't like a real movie. I mean, I guess it could be, but I don't know. Just the trailer for it was somehow managing to parody those old trailers just enough for me to kind of catch on. Yeah. You know? But I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. I'd have to actually go back and watch it because I don't even know if I was paying attention to it in that way or thinking about it even, you know?
Yeah. It's a weird bit of, to me, like silly comedy to put in
with all this like melodrama.
Yeah. And maybe that's why it works.
We get a couple of things in there that are really funny because they're at lunch or dinner or whatever. And there's the lady trying to play the cello, or she's playing an instrument of some kind, and she's not doing a very good job of it. They kind of make fun of her. And then they go watch the movie, and lo and behold, that same lady is playing the organ. So right. It's kind of all funny, and like you can laugh with the two characters, even though they're like inching closer and closer towards, you know, making this discretion, you know, or indiscretion.
It gives them this this thing to bond over, and we see it because we understand it, right? Like it gives them an inside joke with each other.
Yeah.
And if nobody else has anything else, I'm going to go to my last point.
Go for it. Which
is kind of a point, but also kind of a question for Chris, because Chris chose this based on the theme for the Criterion poll was Mother's Day. I question whether or not this film is enough about a mother. Like, our main character is a mother and she has kids, but is that super relevant enough to make it qualify for a Mother's Day poll?
Okay, so I have an answer to that, but I'm also going to explain my choice in choosing Brief Encounter. And basically, oftentimes when we choose polls like that, we often can, or I feel like I often will choose films that I've already seen. So in this situation, I was like, I want to try picking something that I haven't seen before. So I basically just like Googled Mother's Day Criterion Collection. And that is one that popped up. So I didn't really have an idea of like how that would fit into it as such. I do think, however, that it is important that she's a mother in this, even though we only see the kids very little. But like, if it is just her and her husband, I'm like, fuck, leave that guy. He doesn't, like he's inattentive. He, like doesn't care as much. I'm like, he's a nice guy, but he's inattentive, and maybe the relationship has gone its course. But like when you add kids to that, like it's a little bit more dicey, right? So it is important that she is a mother in this show.
I agree. The kids are barely in this movie. They're barely mentioned in this movie. I had forgotten they existed until you asked this question, kind of. But it does matter. It matters to her character, because every time she advances with this potential relationship, or every time she falls more into infatuation with Trevor Howard's character, the kids have to be, in her mind. They have to be. If it was just her husband, it wouldn't even be that big of a deal. But she's struggling with the idea of wrecking her entire family. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, it may not be explicitly painted out towards us, but we have to just put ourselves in the shoes of the main character and realize that there's no way that that's not, a huge factor in her turmoil, and also maybe in the lovelessness of their marriage. Because, a lot of times after people have kids, it's just kind of becomes like a
routine
business partners that raise kids together, So I believe that's the reason. It has a huge factor to do with the tone of the movie, even if the movie itself is not concerned with who the kids are or what's going on with them.
Yeah, it's the motherhood that keeps her not. I guess in the
keeps
end,
her shame
back.
up. Yeah.
I'll allow it. You're off the hook, Chris.
That was a close one.
Also, I will say that in the episode, I did give the caveat and say that Mother's or Mother's Day.
True. Still. I still had the question.
Yeah, no, valid.
Cool. Does anybody have anything else on Brief Encounter before we move on?
No, I say we move on and choose our next theme.
Okay, so
absolutely.
Our next theme for the Criterion poll, I'm going to toss it to Chris to explain.
Yes, Chris, explain.
Yeah, so our theme this week is very special. And the reason it's very special is because I've been inspired with some of the friends that I've been hanging out with from the Alamo Draft House. We still hang out on Fridays and watch a movie, and then afterwards we'll sit around and talk. Not always about the movie, but play games and stuff like that over Google Hangouts. So there was a couple of things that inspired me to choose to do. I wanted to do an at-home film festival. So I got together with a couple of people, and we devised a whole list of movies for this next weekend. A lot of them are Criterion films, and I asked you guys to help out and pick a film from that list, so that way I don't have to add an extra film over the weekend to watch. And because there's already a ton of films, and maybe we'll put it in the show notes or somewhere that we can do it. I also want to extend an invitation to anybody that's listening. If you guys want to join the festival, write into the email or whatever that we've given. But we'll add you to the chat. The more the merrier. It should be pretty awesome. But I never got to what inspired me. There's been actually a lot of at-home film festivals lately. There's this one guy called Cinema Cocktail, and he was doing, he usually went to the Seattle Film Festival, so he had this time off anyways. He's like, I'm just going to program a 2-week festival for myself. And I was like, if he can do that, I can do, a weekend. So that was kind of what I did, and it's pretty exciting. I think I'm might be more excited about the snacks I'm going to buy here in the next couple of days, but I am excited for the movies as well.
Awesome. So just to summarize, out of the movies that you and your friends have chosen, there's a lot of Criterion films, and Justin and I and you are each going to choose a film out of the curated list that you guys have going on to potentially be the pick for our next episode.
Correct.
All right. And then, listener, if you're interested to see what else that was not chosen out of this list, look in the show notes. It'll be there.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go first so you guys don't pick my movie.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
All right, so I'm going to go with a movie that I've been wanting to see for quite some time, and that is Purple Noon, which is, of course, the talented Mr. Ripley, the original film version of that. And I'm excited to watch it, potentially, so I hope it wins.
Yeah, it's got Alain Delon in it.
Oh, yeah.
He's handsome.
Yep. Two correct things about that movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Cool. All right, Chris, what is your choice?
My choice would be... well, I'm going to watch all of these. Why don't you choose one, Justin, and then I'll choose the last one.
Okay, fine. I'm torn. There's a film I've seen a bunch that I really like, and I'd like to watch it again just to talk about it with you guys. But I think I'm going to go for a film that I watched and talked about on the podcast maybe about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And that is the first in the Apu trilogy from Satyajit Ray, and that is Pather Panchali. I really love this film. It was the only time I've ever seen it was when I watched it then, and I think it's fantastic. I think Chris especially will really like it based on other films I know that he super loves. Not to say that, Mike, you won't like it, because I think you will too. But it's very good. So that's Pather Panchali.
All right, so for my last pick, I'm going to go with a movie that I haven't seen, and it's a little bit strange and a little bit different, and that's going to be Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. I know very little about this film. I didn't choose it. One of the other guys chose it, so it should be interesting to see what happens.
Awesome. Cool. So, again, those picks are Purple Noon, chosen by me, Pather Panchali, chosen by Justin, and then Valerie and Her Week of Wonders, chosen by Chris.
Just a reminder, go to our Twitter at Casual Cinecast, follow us so that you can vote in that poll. That poll will be up when this episode is out, and there will also be a link in the show notes.
Yeah. I see that El Topo is kicking this festival off. Did you choose that movie, Chris?
I did choose that movie.
Have you seen it before?
I have not.
Then you don't know the mistake you've made.
Yeah. There's a reason it's a midnight movie. Not a 4 p.m. movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate on that one.
It is at 4 p.m. What?
It's like the weirdest time to watch El Topo. But it's going to be interesting, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about that movie. I've never seen anything like it, and I've never wanted to go back since.
Is El Topo followed by Little Monsters, like the Howie Mandel movie?
No. It's Little Monsters. Lupita Nyong'o is in this movie from last year.
I saw the trailer for that movie.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought of the Fred Savage Howie Mandel like 80s movie, and I was like, why are we going from El Topo to that? But this makes more sense.
It's a pick me up after El Topo.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would make sense too. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I guess so this is going to start on Friday, May 29th. So anytime you guys, this episode should come out Thursday, but if you guys want to join, just let us know.
Yeah, sounds exciting. Sounds cool.
And with that, are we done with this episode?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And then, of course, as always, thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
That's right. Stay tuned to this channel. Our next episode will be one of these movies that we just talked about, whichever one you guys vote on. So vote well. Vote true.
You know, I actually don't know what will win this one, so it really could be any. Sometimes there's an obvious choice.
Yeah, this is like the least obvious one, because I feel like they're all kind of like deep cuts.
Below the radar, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. May the best film win.
All right, guys, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time, and stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.
See you later.